let's get started then, if that's the case. Who are you? Introduce yourself.
Well, hi, Aaron. I'm Tricia Stuart. I am the U.S. Office Director of Terralingua, and I've been in this role, I guess, for, it seems like forever, but about 8 years, I would say I've been in this role.
So you work for Terralingua. So what do they do? What is the main goals of Terralingua?
So Terralingua is a translation service provider, and we provide professional translation services to many different industries, everything from manufacturing to education to, whatever field you might have. We have a very varied client base. I would say we mostly have a lot more in the manufacturing field than in other fields, but we have everything from medical devices to technology to educational software. It's a very large client base.
Okay. So we obviously at Ken Cook utilize you guys with some of our customers and things like that. So we know the benefits of going with Terralingua. So with the amount of different translation companies out there, what is the benefit? Why would somebody go with you guys over somebody else? Or when do you think somebody even shouldn't maybe go with you guys and go with somebody else instead? Like, what are the reasons to use Terralingua?
That's a great question, Aaron. So how our company started about 20 years ago is our founder, Mauro. Excuse me, he was a medical doctor. Oh my goodness.
You grab some water.
Should we start over again? Because I am no? Okay, we're good.
You grab some water if you want. I got a little Gatorade here for myself. So
no, we're great.
So 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Thanks, Aaron. Back on track here. So 20 years ago, our founder was a physician, and he received literature on devices and different information. And he realized just the lack of quality assurance and the information that was provided that could affect life and limb. And so he found himself translating a lot of materials just for safety reasons. And then he sort of just migrated into opening up his own translation agency 20 years ago. And that's how Terralingua was born. They primarily started off doing only Portuguese translations because they're based in Brazil. But as his reputation grew for quality, he had customers say, "We like what you do. Can you offer this language and this language and this language?" And so he started to make partnerships with translators and different agencies all over the world, because it's important to have translators in country. And so we only use native speaking translators. So that's something important. But getting to your question as to why someone should use Terralingua, well, I think that we offer the best of both worlds. I think that we offer the close client contact and intimacy of a smaller agency and all of the bells and whistles of a big agency. You might ask, does size matter, right? Does size matter? Because you see all of the large translation providers out there with the large ads and presence. And honestly, I think that if you can find someone who can offer you all of the services at the level that you require, it doesn't matter if they have a full page ad in some magazine. Our focus has always been on the client. It hasn't been on us, which is why whenever Mauro started off, he primarily provided translation services to large translation companies, large language service providers. But then he realized that we could just work directly with clients and save them money and just cut out the middleman. And so though we still do provide translation services to many translation agencies, we like working directly with clients and giving them the best customer service and technology all rolled up into one.
Yeah, from your technology standpoint, I mean, we obviously can go with different vendors at different times and things like that over the years. And with you guys, it's always so impressive that we can submit something to you and the time that it takes to get a response on how much something will cost or what it'll be to actually do this translation, then a turnaround as well, is always so impressive on how fast and how efficient it is in comparison to a lot of our other vendors. Not to say that we always go with Terralingua because sometimes a customer just insists on it or things like that, but I'm always so impressed. And literally every single one of my guys here that goes through and does a proposal lately that have submitted that out, they're always blown away at how fast you guys are able to get something done for a customer. It's pretty impressive. The technology you guys have is I think is something I think you guys really just knock it out of the park when it comes to how you can see it, what the pricing looks like, and being able to see, the overall transaction and what it looks like, even from like a variant of the proposal and what you guys do. It's kind of blown away by it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Aaron. And that's the power of utilizing technology, where many people would use a lot of people and going through a lot of hoops to get something finished. How Terralingua is structured is to utilize technology to make the most of our time. And so instead of having a lot of different hands inside of things, we utilize a platform that is secure. And it gives our clients almost a translation management portal where they can track projects, they can keep track of progress of invoicing or whatever it may be, all in one place. And security has become really important because, unfortunately, there's been a lot of hacking and data breaches and things that have happened. And so, unfortunately, not every company has been as forward thinking about how to keep files safe, especially with people working at home now. And they're utilizing just their home systems, and to know that at our portal, it is going to be a secure file transfer process where the translators, the file is protected in their silo.
Yeah, and especially with the type of documentation that we do and the customers we're dealing with here, that documentation gets out, it could be a huge problem on their end. So for us, we love that you guys have a good back end there to make sure that nothing's going to happen to the documentation and making sure that it doesn't get in the wrong hands or a competitor or things like that as well. So it's always kind of great to see that you guys have that as well from a security standpoint. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you brought up manufacturing as one of the things. And obviously at Ken Cook here, we work pretty much in manufacturing, but heavy equipment, automotive, the marine industry. And you guys just seem to always, whenever we do the translation stuff, it just seems to match what we need for our customers on those specific spectrums, especially with the heavy equipment. It just seems to always come across without us having to go back and saying, hey, this word actually means this, or this term actually means this. So do you guys, how do you guys do that? I mean, that's such a weird way you guys always do a great job at it. So how do you do that? Like, what's that secret sauce there? Or can you not let that know?
No. Well, I'm quite honest. Yeah. Let me let you look behind the curtain here at what we're doing here at the Wizard of Oz. But, so what is most important is, as you mentioned, whenever you task someone with doing your translation, you want to ensure that they have the correct background, education, and expertise to do the work. Everyone is going to tell you that, of course, they're going to use qualified translators. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And you find that out after you've already paid sometimes. But how you can check to ensure that you're working with an agency who's going to follow the correct guidelines in assigning the proper translator is there's an ISO standard, the 17100, and that is to ensure that only the proper translators with the right background that they're working on your projects. So if you work with an agency that has that designation, you know that they're going to have the translators with the correct background and education working on your projects. But what we also do is we don't just allow our translators to pass a test and then have free reign on a particular industry. Monitoring their deliveries for quality. We're continually monitoring, are they qualified for this industry? And how we do that is we have a scoring system based on the LISA system. It's the Localization Industry Standards Association. It's about 10 different categories. And every translation is scored based on those categories. And if somebody fails, like for example, mistranslation, to inaccurately translate something, the max amount of errors that are allowed by the editor who's reviewing the work is 2. Because if it's more than 2, then they're not qualified for this work. Of course, all of this does not have, the client will not have anything inaccurately delivered. All of this is done behind the scenes, but it allows us to then go into remediation with that translator, as well as see if maybe they need to be removed from this industry. They're not allowed to work in that industry for our company.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. I did not realize there was like so many different standards that actually went into that. And then the overall process you guys are doing. So how do you manage that? Is that something that you guys have a specific person that does that? Or is that something that you also do as well? I mean, because I know, God, you're always, always have a million things going on. So is that something that you have to do then as well? Or is that somebody else in the company that does that?
No, we have a quality assurance manager, but we utilize the technology for this as well. So every translator also has a portal where they have a running scorecard, per se, or a report card of how they've completed each project, the problems that have been found. And if there are a lot of issues, that is deducted off of their invoice, because we had to pay an editor to go through and fix things, because as I mentioned, we have to make it right for the client. So they're very motivated to deliver translations. And it's not to sound like we're some strict school teacher either. I mean, we just want to ensure that we have the right people working on our clients' work. And it's not something where, we have somebody who is a fluent native speaker, but they're not industry qualified. This process allows us to keep out the people who aren't qualified for certain industries.
Wow. So from my side of things, I just go, I send you an email. Here's the thing I need. And then it goes up on the portal page, which then I see the portal information. And then, a couple of days later after we submitted it out, or a week or 2 later, depending on the complexity of the project, I'll get in, the actual result of information for us to evaluate and review. And then we just put it in. So for our end, all we see is one thing. We're just like, yes, we submitted it. It comes back. We have it. And we can go back and look it over. And then, for some of the stuff we do have, like for Spanish, that's one of the ones where we have obviously people that speak Spanish on staff. So we always make sure we validate with that stuff. And we have almost 0 issues when that stuff comes back. So, but I always just assumed it was really just like you send it off, you then send it to a person, that person filled out the form and send it back. I didn't realize there was all these other steps that went into this to actually validate this overall process. So that's actually pretty impressive, because again, I can tell you that some of these other agencies that are out there, that is exactly what they're doing. They're literally just handing it over to somebody else, getting that translated, and then sends back. And then the amount of times we have to go back and say, okay, this isn't done right, or this is missing, or things like that is pretty high. But I didn't realize, like, to make sure you guys, the way you guys do it, I didn't realize you're doing all those extra steps.
Well, it could be. I mean, there's a variety of factors that could play into why someone maybe is delivering a translation that's not accurate. Many agencies are now utilizing machine translation. And we are all aware of machine translation because we use Google Translate, right? Yep. We all get on Google Translate and find things out. But based on that machine's knowledge, right? The machine translation's knowledge of that client's need. It works wonderfully if you have built a large translation memory and you have you teach it, right? You teach it what is the right way that you like things to be said. But unfortunately, that's not something that you just can come right out of the gate with and have a quality end product. So what we advise people to do is to first start off with, a team of professional translators to do the work. And then as your translation memory builds, we're going to utilize the technology then to use more machine translation as possible in order to produce a quality product, but that's not as expensive as it needs to be. And the technology is used for projects. I'm sure, Aaron, have you heard of translation memory? You've heard of that before?
So, absolutely.
That's something that a lot of people aren't aware of whenever they translate documents, is the importance of that, is the importance of the maintenance of it, the ownership of it, and just ensuring that you have that asset under control. Because many times people turn over that asset to their, to their translation provider, and they just let them handle it and manage it, which the translation provider should, but they don't have any ownership of it. So let's say, for example, you're working with somebody and they're doing a great job and they're returning translations that are accurate and on time, but suddenly things go wrong. And maybe they're bought by another company, or maybe the turnaround time goes down, or whatever it may be. And you say, I think I'm going to bid this out to some other people, or I'm going to see, what someone else can offer. And you want to have control of that little suitcase of information. And the reason why is because you want to be consistent with what you've had translated before. And other people, they can utilize your past translated material as reference. They could pull out key terms, and they could build a translation memory and try to put things together. But the real power comes in being able to hand over that suitcase, which is the translation memory, to a provider, and to say, use this to quote, use this to do my work. And then you pull that suitcase back whenever they're finished. And it's updated with your review comments and your review preferences, but you have control of that asset. So then that way you can easily take your investment to another provider if you need to.
So is that easy? Like, so if I was to go with a different provider and then bring it over to you, is that a common practice, or what do you, is that every single industry kind of do that? Does all the translators do that, or have that available?
Well, here's where we get into a tricky situation, Aaron, because honestly, not every company likes to release the translation memory. And if you go to them and you ask them for the translation memory, they're going to start getting really nervous, because they know that that means that you're probably, you're going to exit stage left. So it's always important before you start a relationship with a translation provider is to ask, will I receive a copy of my translation memory upon request with no strings, no fees? Some people request it once a quarter. Some people request it once a year. Some people request it with every project. It just depends. But the most important thing is that they'll release it whenever you ask with no strings. Now, if you haven't set up that relationship ahead of time, and then suddenly you come to them and say, I want a copy of my translation memory, they're going to start getting really jittery, like, oh, you've never asked for that before. Why do you want that? And oftentimes they may consider it their property, that they created it, and so it's theirs. So unless you set it up ahead of time that it's your property, it's part of the scope of the work of what you invested in, it can be a little difficult, because some translation agencies may not release it. Hopefully they will. Hopefully they will if you ask, but they're not obligated to.
What about for you guys? Is that as the default for you guys?
Yes, that's just been our standard practice, is we want people to be with us because they want to be with us, and not because we have all of their information, all of their they don't want to have to go. Sometimes people go, oh, we don't want to go to another agency, because then our reviewer is going to have to give all their feedback again and all their preferences again. And, it's just so much easier to pass it off to these guys because they know what we like. Well, you can pick up that little suitcase of what you like, and you can give it to somebody else if you want. And we consider that suitcase yours because you paid for it. We made it because of you. We didn't make it for us, because every client has their own translation memory. Now, just depending on how some translators may work, maybe they don't have individual translation memories for every client. They should. Right. But they may not. They may just have an industry translation memory that they may be using. I don't know. But that's why it's important to know. And then it's also important that you get very clear on your target, because every time you say, oh, I want French for Canada versus French for Europe, you have two different suitcases that are created. So it's important to company-wide determine what are our official languages that we want everyone to ask, because sometimes people will just say, oh, Spanish for Mexico, and they don't realize that that's not going to be consistent with the past work.
Sure. Or for, from the different countries, or even South America, things like that as well. Right. So would you have, or like in the case of Spanish, there's so many different variants, or even in the Asian countries for Chinese. So would you have a suitcase then for every like Colombian, Peruvian versions of it? Is that how that works?
It is. So if you request a certain dialect or a certain target area, that is how that suitcase is created. It's created just for, your team is selected based on that target, and that is how they're going to create that suitcase. And I'm sorry, I'm using a suitcase analogy for the translation memory, but it's just a little easier to talk that way. But that is why many of our clients are going towards an international Spanish. And what that is a neutral type of dialect or a target that isn't as heavy as far as cultural specific terms or preferences, where it would be very clear that it's for a particular region. Some people really love the international Spanish because it allows them to speak to many different audiences. And some people prefer to go with a specific target because it just depends on where your client is and who you're trying to work with. Some people want to have several different region specific information in that region, but it just depends on the need.
Yeah, well, regarding the Spanish translation and things like that, I was just actually on site. We were just talking a minute ago about, I was in Las Vegas last week doing a video shoot for a new product that one of our customers has. And one of the things you guys did was the translation work for that product, actually, in this specific case. So we actually had them go over a course on a different product that they had that a different translation company did. And they were just pointing out the amount of problems with the Spanish because he was Mexican. So he was looking for the Mexican Spanish. He was like, he's like, I don't understand this term. But then we gave him the one that you guys did, which was the Mexican Spanish for another product, and went over that with him. He's like, yeah, this makes complete sense, as if there was no flaws between it. But the other one was from a Colombian Spanish translation versus a Mexican Spanish translation. So yeah, but this international Spanish was never something that really has ever come up in a conversation. So does that mean it'd be easy for like people in Spain, it's more the common term dialect? Is that the reasoning behind that?
Exactly. It's more, and whenever you have technical documents, you don't run into the preferences as heavily as you do with marketing material. Sure. But it is something that is more neutral. And it's not as region specific. And we have a helpful tips little booklet. If anybody would be interested in it, I can send that to you, Aaron. And it's on selecting a Spanish dialect and the differences between the different regions. And it may help with determining what you would like to do. But just keep in mind that it may be a headache to manage. Sometimes whenever people get into translation and they think, yeah, let's do a Spanish for Mexico, and then we'll do another one for our client in Europe. But then as they expand and their materials expand, then that means you're going to have to update and keep up with new versions. And, and then what do? You have to pay for each of those versions to be updated. And if you don't have the foresight, it can become kind of a monster.
Oh yeah, no. Some of these things get very costly when we have to have like 5 or 6 different versions of Spanish. The big one is for us has been Chinese. Has been the one that just happens because there's so many different dialects and so many different versions of Cantonese and Mandarin, and then the simplified versus the traditional and things like that. So do you have another thing like that, like an international version that's for the Asian side of things, or as well, or is that?
No, not that I'm aware of. I didn't stay the night in a Holiday Inn last night, and I'm not a native Chinese speaker, but as far as my industry knowledge goes, no, there is not an international type of Asian translation available. But what we can do is we can assist you with, if you give us the parameters of where you're trying to communicate or where your product will go, we can give you the best the best answer or the best solution to that need. So if you say, I'm going here, well, there may be a percentage of speakers or people who write in that region of whatever it may be. And so we can evaluate the area that you are targeting and advise as to what the best selection would be. Or, you can also request a sample. All translation companies are happy to do a sample translation of about 300 words and have them do it in traditional or simplified or whatever it may be. And then you can determine, give that to your customer or to whoever it may be and ask them which speaks to you or which is the best. And so they can tell you. They might not know the technicalities of what they want, but they can show you which sample most addresses what they need.
So for that international Spanish, you said there's a book. So if somebody wanted that, pardon me.
I gave you my hoarseness here. I know it's spring.
Well, so last week I actually lost my voice completely, being on site doing a video shoot on a golf course with lawnmowers that were running. I had to project from far away quite a bit, and I was hoarse by Friday. I could barely speak. I got home and literally you could barely hear any of my voice whatsoever. So I'm finally back to a normal auditory, although you can still hear a little bit. You can still hear a little bit of it going down. So, so with the international Spanish booklet, so you said it's like a pamphlet, like a PDF or something like that you send out, or?
Yes, it's a PDF that we have. And we also have a helpful tips booklet with questions that you can ask before you get into a relationship with a translation provider. I just had a conversation this morning with a new client, and they didn't know many of the questions that were inside of the helpful tips booklet. And so we were going through it, and he said, I didn't even think to ask that. I didn't even think of that question. And so I'd be happy to share the helpful tips booklet as well as the different Spanish dialects, if that's helpful to your listeners.
Yeah, if you got a link, I'm assuming, is it on your website that they could just go to download it somewhere on the website, or?
No, it is not, though. That's a great idea. We should probably
it seems like from a marketing standpoint, it seems like a great place to fill out the form and get access to this booklet.
That would be great. Thank you, Aaron, for that insight. I'll have to bring that up. Yeah.
But yeah, no, if you'd like to share, I'll just put your information in on the posts and put it out on the web and stuff like that. I'll put it down on the bottom of the in the little black spots beneath here. I'll put your information and stuff like that to contact you. So I'll just have them contact you directly if that's okay.
Absolutely. I would love to be of service. And that's why I think we get along so well, Aaron, is that both of our companies are very service based. We're about our customers and doing whatever we need to do to meet their need and to provide their solutions. And that's what I've always admired about Ken Cook, is that your company has always been the top-notch service provider as far as being customer focused and doing what's right for your customers. So that's why I think we get along so well.
Yeah, we're not always going to be the right solution, is what I always tell people, but we're going to give you a point in the right direction if we don't know it. We're going to be like, hey, these people over here probably know it really well. We obviously know a lot of people in the industry when it comes to those three areas that we talked about: heavy equipment, automotive, and marine. So we always try to make a recommendation because, to be honest, I mean, we've been around for 78 years now.
Wow.
And to say that we have customers is so strange to me because literally every customer is a partner, because every project we're doing, we both benefit from. Yes. So it's not just about a transaction. It doesn't work that way for us. And it seems, to be honest, I mean, every conversation we've ever had or any project that we've done together or little things here and there, it seems to be the same way, which is why I like utilizing you guys so much. Is like, hey, you just have that same kind of mindset from that standpoint. That being said, how do we know each other, actually? How did we actually? Oh,
that's a great question, Aaron. How do we know each other?
How did that start? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, was it 6 years ago? Is that how long ago it was?
Probably,
perhaps? Yeah.
5-6 years,
Yeah, at the Association of Equipment Manufacturers Safety and Liability Conference. We were both exhibiting there and had booths close by each other and just started chatting in between visits by attendees, and we just hit it off. Because like I said, I think that we both have that same kind of mindset that I'm here to be a resource. I'm here to help you be an educated consumer. I'm here to give you my knowledge, and I'd love to work with you. I'd love to partner with you. I'd love to help you with your need. But if not, just know that you can call on me whenever you need me.
Yeah. If I have this correct, I think it was I just started with Ken Cook. I was like 3 or 4 weeks in. I was just starting.
But you still had a hat. You still had a hat.
Always, literally. To be honest, I had this. I have a rule. Whereas I show up to an interview, I'm going to be in a full suit and tie. I'm going to be decked out, and then I have two things that I do that's always weird that most people, it throws people off. One is I have a hat, make sure it matches. Obviously, it's professional looking. I'll have a hat on, and I'll have really bright colored shoes on. I used to work at Crocs, and I worked for a lot of startups. So I just always I want to make sure that this company I'm going to go to is going to match or fit with me. I'm a professional. I'm going to work hard for you, but don't make me change who I am to come work for you. So I want to know if that's the case. So if somebody's like, oh, why are you wearing a hat or what? I'll discuss it and have that conversation with them. But the second they say, they showed up with a hat, good. I'm glad I lost that opportunity or that job or that, because if I can't be myself, if I can't be who I am, then I shouldn't be there to begin with. And it's like a way it's an indicator for me to kind of get out, this is not a good place for me. And Ken Cook they didn't even care. I actually did it was funny with the place here. I was in the middle of working on my own business, and I was on site for another customer of mine at the time, and I was like, hey, I want to do this interview. And it was on a video conference like this, and I'm in Kentucky somewhere, and it was super hot, and I was like, I'm really sorry. I was like, I couldn't get dressed. I was like, so I'm in a t-shirt that's kind of like sweat coming down. And I got the hat on and stuff, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. I was like, this is all I could do, because we tried to do it all last minute, and they're like, no, it's completely understandable. And an hour later, we decided that we weren't a good fit. We actually decided that the job that they were looking for and what I was doing just wasn't going to match up. And then a week later, they called me. We're like, hey, we want to create a position for you. We think you're great. We want to create a position. So the training division didn't even exist at the company. They created this whole division for me when I started. Yeah, and
that's a great story. I didn't know that, Aaron. That's a great story.
Yeah, and now I actually run all of customer engagement. So everything, I'm not even just in training anymore. Now anything that touches a customer in general now is behind my, I've done a couple different jobs at this company at this point and changed around. But to be honest, actually, this is where you come in actually here. So within the first couple of weeks, and I started working at Ken Cook, and they made me come to this AEM seminar where I know nothing about heavy equipment at the time. I know nothing about the industry. I know nothing. I worked in consumer electronics. I worked in, I worked for Apple, and I worked for Crocs and things like that. So these just didn't fit. And I sit there and I'm like, well, if I could just be myself, and I'm watching you just, be yourself. And then to the point where you focused on customer engagement and experience, at such a high level, that I was like, I have to do that from now on. When we were there, you wrote letters to everybody. You literally wrote handwritten notes to everybody. Yeah. And I got one of those notes, and it literally it changed my perception on how to think about a customer engagement. It's not just about today. It's not about tomorrow. It's about how you directly reflected something that they did, or you had a conversation with. And it was so personal. The letter was and you wrote that for almost everybody, right? Was it any person that you talked to, right? And that just changed my whole perspective on how I should be approaching every single customer. So because of you, I started shifting. This is not a joke. This is no joke. I definitely thought about every single time I talk to a customer, how do I make this personal? How do I make sure this is, how do I make this a friendship instead of a business transaction? And it changed my entire perception on how I did work going forward. And I think that's why I've been successful here, is because of that strategy.
Wow, Aaron,
no joke whatsoever.
Wow.
No joke.
I have to tell you, that really touches me, because I came to this business. I was a teacher, and I changed professions. I did not have a sales background. I did not have, and sometimes still I get a little flustered because, you have this hat that you're supposed to wear, and this voice you're supposed to have, and this persona that you're supposed to be whenever you're doing sales, and you're supposed to look like you're the biggest and the best and the greatest, and, finesse these words and what have you. But honestly, like you said, if I can't be myself, and if I can't just help people and share my knowledge and be a resource, then I don't want to do it. Then I'm not a fit. And so I'm very blessed in that I found Mauro and Terralingua, who I told them from the get-go, listen, I'm not, you can't stuff me in a suit and send me off somewhere. I'm just not that kind of gal. I'm much more about building relationships and trust. And that's really important to me, because my word is really important. And that's what I see these interactions as. And if I'm going to give you my word, then we had better have a personal relationship, because I'm investing myself inside of this relationship. All of my projects, I pass them off to our project managers, but I have to tell you, I'm the helicopter mom. I'm kind of like, what's going on? How are things going? And so if I can't give my word, and if I can't do that, then I just don't want to do it. And so I think that that's why we just have clicked so well, is that we see things the same way. And I'm so happy to hear that, because I think that if all of us we were just ourselves, and we didn't have all of these, this is what I should look like, and this is how I should be. And, I think that we all would just enjoy our jobs a lot more, because I really enjoy talking to people and having conversations with I don't get all sweaty and stressed out and, I've got quotas in my head and whatever. I mean, it's not about the numbers, it's about the people. And people can tell whenever it's about numbers and it's not about them. And so how can I make it about them if I'm not going to be myself? And so that means a lot to me, Aaron. Thank you very much for saying that, because sometimes I think, wow, sometimes I'm so not professional, so because I will tell you if we're not the best solution for that. Yeah. I will tell you if, and I'm here to be a resource. And if I'm not the resource that works for you right now for this particular project, hey, I understand, but I'm here for you whenever there is a project or a need that you may have.
Yeah, well, in literally watching you do that first time, like going through that stuff. And again, I wasn't in sales. I was the training manager, just hanging out, trying to learn about the industry at the time, and just seeing the way you did it. I just approached, again, a non-sales strategy to it, watching you do that. And I was like, this is the way to kind of head that direction. This is the way to do this. Like, how do I touch it? Now, I'm not writing notes to every single person, like handwritten notes, but I am doing something. Sometimes I'll send them a video message or a text message that's personal, or, just something that's a little more me in that specific sense. But like, it is definitely something I want to make sure there's a personal relationship that's given, or information that's given, that say that, hey, I care what's going on. Like, I love that I get pictures from my from our partners, our customers here at Ken Cook, of their kids. Like, they send me the pictures, like, my kids did this, like the other day. I'm like, and I'm super excited. Like, my kid just won this at the, the hockey thing, or like, they just won this and I'm like, it's happening like right there. Like, I'm now one of the contacts that they reach out to about something that achieved in there. And it means so much to me personally. And I thoroughly love that stuff. I mean, even from you as well, like when you ask me, like, hey, how the kids doing? Like, send me a picture and things. And it makes me very happy to do things like that. Like, when people want to have that personal relationship and not just about a business transaction. Because I don't know about you, but like, this is 60 hours of work a week on average for me, on average a week. And if I don't have that work-life integration, right. versus separation, like for me, I don't think I could do it. The integration is actually what makes it better for me, I don't expect everybody else to be the same way. I don't, but
No.
I'm going to focus that way and be that way. So.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's like a work family. I mean, my goodness, look at how much time you spend at work. And so, and the same thing. And if they're not your partners, I agree with you about the customer or client thing. I do. I'll never forget, whenever I started with this, I had, a client or a friend who said to me, I called him a client, whenever I was talking about it, he's like, Trish, we're friends and that's okay. But I, for some reason, thought it's not okay to say that we're friends because I'm business and this is professional and what have you. But how can you not work with someone and trust large projects with them and have deadlines and everything else? It's so much better to pass that off to somebody that you trust and someone that has your back and someone that cares, right? And so what do you call that person? How can you not call that person a friend, right? If they care about you, they've got your back, you can trust them. Granted, it's not, you don't want to make it too awfully personal, but
Sure.
But it is. It's a friendship. It's a friendship. It's a partnership. It's a relationship, and that's what all of this is. So that really means a lot to me, Aaron. Thank you very much for sharing that.
I mean, thank you for giving me that idea to do that and actually make it more personal and make it more, because I just had a business that went under because I didn't do that. I felt like I wasn't being myself. I was trying to be bigger than I was. I landed a very large client in my previous business and, again, pretending I was a big company and backed it up with my own personal money to make that happen. And when they went away and something happened, I lost my business because I was faking who I was as a business person. I wasn't being myself. And that was the biggest problem. I wasn't honest with the customer about it.
Right.
Like, I bet you if I had established that stuff up front and said, hey, I'm putting my own personal dollars to make this happen, they probably would have either backed away and then I wouldn't have been in that situation, or B, maybe they would have been there to help out and make that transaction happen and something like that. So, which, to be honest, most of our partners here at KenCook, that's exactly how they are here. When we say, hey, this is a thing, this is what's going on, what can we do to help is what they say to us. And that's amazing. Like, when COVID happened and a bunch of things unfortunately got locked up and stopped for a little while, we had some people that just stepped up and reached out to us, hey, what can we do for you guys to make sure you guys are good? And that was amazing to have that kind of reaction. And it's because, again, focusing on that personal relationship behind it, and to be honest, I mean, the delivery of the quality of work is I never say I'm the best because I don't know if I am, but I'm going to put my every single piece of effort into anything we put out there. And I'm always very impressed by the final piece of work. If somebody else can do a better job for the price that we do it and for the amount of effort and the things, the integrations that we do for people, I want you to go to that other person. I do. I don't want you to stick with us if that's the case. If somebody can beat that, I'm ready to lose that work. So
I agree with you. And I think that honesty is so important because we're not infallible. We're humans, we're all humans with kids who are screaming up all night or stressed that, somebody's not well or whatever it may be. Even with our best efforts, things may happen. But what's important is, are you going to be there to fix it? Are you going to make it right? Are you going to say, listen, I'm going to have to take this out of my paycheck or whatever it has, I'm going to work extra hours or whatever it has to be to make it right because I gave my word. And, but yeah, I've had to be honest sometimes that, sometimes things don't always, translate. A team that we had planned to do the work, an accident happened or they weren't available. And so the schedule has to change or whatever it may be. But as honest as you can be about what's going on and just for people to know that you're going to do everything you can to make it right. That's what's important. So, yeah. Oh, Aaron, I love that we see eye to eye on these things. This is great. This is good. No, because I think that so many people think that they have to be the best and they have to be this thing. And it's just, maybe it works for them, but that really helps me because sometimes I feel like I'm some odd duck out there, you know, in that I'm not this big, you know, stuffed suit out there, you know, touting how great we are. And so it's really great to see another servant leader who sees that, you know, the importance of doing the right thing.
Actions speak louder than words, right? Is the key. So like one of the things I love is that we don't have a single partner that doesn't reach out for us to tell you how, hey, we had this great relationship. They just did this project, and they'll put it out on their communication to let other people know, to help us. Because we don't really, to be honest, here at Ken Cook, at least, we're not really sales. I mean, we are, but we aren't. You know, we not to say that we won't pick up the phone and call somebody, but I mean, most of the time it's a referral. Somebody recommended us, like for this project, or an internal referral within a company and things like that. It's just how it works, is that we get the volume in based off of the referrals of our customers. And don't get me wrong, we'll ask for those referrals too, but the amount of times we don't have to is pretty high, because of what we've done, or how much we care about them being successful in the projects and stuff as well. So, and I know that's come across with the things that you and I have talked about over the years and stuff as well. And we always appreciate, you know, whenever we've gotten to do something together, it does feel like it's not just about us. It's not just about you. It's about making sure we're both in this together to make something happen. So I appreciate that. And I got to be honest, this is one of those things where I know the last time we got to see each other was Con Expo for like 30 seconds, yes. Literally 30 seconds, right? I mean, I was in the middle of, I think I was in the middle of giving an interview or something like that. And like, you just pop by and I'm like, oh, great. And then I turn around and you're gone. I'm like, oh no, I didn't see her. Yeah,
it was a crazy trip, that whole Con Expo thing, and just trying to, my gosh, they expanded.
The world shut down while we were there.
And the world shut down. And but I was bound and determined to go see you before.
And I appreciate that. Went home. Even if it was just for a couple of seconds, I really do appreciate that. It meant a lot to me.
Well, it means a lot to have the relationship that we do. So thank you, Aaron.
And thanks for doing this too. I know this is, you know, it's very informal, right? I know it's not really a heavy structure, but I always find it's a fun conversation. It ends up being something simple, and it gets across what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I'm really blessed of knowing some really great people, and I want other people to know about them. So that's the key of this. So
I'm so honored that you asked me to do this, and thank you for your patience with my hoarse voice. And I just am here for you, Aaron, whatever you might need, or whatever your customers may need, whatever your listeners may need. I'm honored just to, if you have a question about anything, just shoot me an email. I'll give you my contact information, and I'm here. I'm happy to be a resource.
If you have a different, like, I'm going to put up your email address and things like that on this. If you have a URL or a place that you'd rather, like a landing page to send people, I have no problem doing that as well. So just let whatever you want to give, I'll put in that in the communication of the post. I'm not saying you're going to get a ton of people, but you'll get a few. I obviously don't have a massive following or anything, but again, it does. I do send this to every single one of our customers, and a lot of them do see it. And I mean, you know, if we get a couple hundred views and people that watch it, it's led to a couple of leads for everybody. Everybody that's done it has gotten a lead or two out of it so far.
That's great.
So I mean, if that can do just that tiny little piece to help somebody out, it's more than worth it to me. So
well, and a high tide raises all boats, right? So
I believe that's the case. Yeah. So I mean,
hasn't let anything. Thank you for bringing the wave. Yet, yeah. Well, thank you for bringing the wave. It all comes around. Yeah.
For me, it's about just being able to have a minute to talk to somebody and actually block off the time to say, hey, let's just have a chat, and you know, that's all. So.
Well, thank you. It's so nice to connect with you. Well, thank you, Aaron, and